So we also have tooling support. So we got a first command line tool, QML viewer. You just give it a QML file, and up, it renders everything. You can load plugins, because you can create plugins for QML, and then you load them as well. This is just the command line tool. We also have Qt Creator, which is our IDE. So of course, it supports all C++ features of Qt, but then we added features for supporting QML. So you get a project wizard, you get syntax highlighting, error checking, help lookup, code completion snippet, and you also have what you see is what you get graphical editor. So you can create your UI in a graphical editor, and then the code that you see is actually the code that is generated, but it's not generated. It's the code that creates the tool is the same that you will run. It's not like intermediate step of generating a C++ class or whatever. You can hack in the code, and then it's changed in the editor, and vice versa. The editor is still in recharge. It's actually hard to make a complete graphical editor for that. For instance, Designer took many years for us to stabilize and to get something that is decent for designing UI in C++ back in time. So a bit of a demo, just a small quick demo. So first, I would like to not thank NVIDIA for providing really bad driver on Linux. It doesn't actually pick up the proper resolution. So I already have a bad resolution, but you can read, I think. So here it's Qt Creator. So for instance, let's say I do file, and I can create a project. So let's create a Qt Quick project, which is a QML application. Then I say choose. Then I name it, I don't know, live demo. Then next. I don't have any version control, so finish. And here is the first QML project. So the directive on the top is import. So you import the Qt library here, and then you can create a rectangle with the width and height set to 200. And as a child, you'll say text with a position of X and Y, and the text hello world. And if you run it, here is what you get, hello world. So it's easy. I want to change the color of the rectangle. Then I just do color, red. Then I run, and it's red. So easy to use. Don't need to subclass to get the red color. We don't compile. It's an interpreted language. There is no compilation step. So you can, as soon as there is Qt somewhere with at least Qt 4.7, then you can just put your QML file and it will run. Don't need to think about deployment issues. Also, so that's just a small demo, right? I can also, for instance, like, I don't know, move the text a bit, for instance, up, and then I can just save run, and the text moved, right? And if I go to the graphical editor here, it's a debug build. You see, this is what I see, right? And if I move the hello world here and come back to the code, you see X change. No intermediate step, no pre-compilation, nothing. It's live coding, pretty much. So the editor is still in recharge. Unfortunately, because of the bad resolution, it's hard to see what's going on, but I invite you to try by yourself on a proper resolution, or I can show you after. So that was just a small demo. So easy to use. In 5 minutes, you can hack your first application in QML. So the language basics. So it's declarative, as I said. Direct and expressive language. You just tell what you want to, how the interface looks like. It's like, I want the button here. I want the button there. I want the rectangle here. I want the pixmap there. It's the way you just describe the user interface. That's one of the strong points of QML. No construction detour. tools, as I said, the tool and Quick Designer, perfect thing. Like the code that you see is the code that is generated by, created by the tool. It's simple, intuitive. All the features that you have in Qt are supported. Signals, slots, so you can actually connect the objects, for instance, on a click button. For instance, if you have a mouse click, you can connect easily any item to the mouse click and do something. It's fun to use. You can hack stuff very quickly. It's JavaScript inspired, so everybody that has touched somehow web development will find their way very easily. It's built on top of C++. So all the elements that I was using, for instance, the rectangle and the text, are actually implemented in C++, super fast. And you can extend QML easily with your own elements in C++. We have a plugin support, and it's nothing like an API, which is the Netscape plugin architecture for the web, like for instance, to get the Flash working. It has nothing to do with that. It's completely integrated with proper plugin in C++, for instance. So there is no crazy stuff to integrate existing code. So as I said, we got a state and transition support, which is something that is really nice to have. You can say, so as I was giving the example of landscape and portrait, but it can be, I don't know, edit mode or viewing mode for, let's say, a text document. So in edit mode, you get the tab bar going down. So it's two different states, for instance, view mode, edit mode. If you want to say, like, a state is actually another name for a set of property values for a given item at a time. So you said on this state, this item will be in that position. On that state, the item will be on this position. The transition is how you combine the two states from one to another. What will happen? So you can set animation on the transition. You can say, okay, the button will not jump, but instead will slowly move. Then you can do it with an animation. We used an element called property animation, which is also a key for other animation type, like color animation. You can animate the color of a button. You can also animate numbers, like from, let's say, 100 to 1 to 100. It will actually interpolate properly. But you can also create your custom animation using property animation. We also have we also have support for sequential and parallel animations. So you can have actually launch animation one after one or at the same time. So if you want to move, let's say, two buttons in the UI, then you want to move it at the same time, then you create a parallel animation and then you put two animations into it. We also have an element called actions. So actions, you can during the animation, you can trigger action, and you can say, okay, for instance, I want to trigger the save in the database. So when you're in the middle of the animation, you say, okay, let's do this action, and then this action can be connected to a C++ implementation, for instance, and then it will actually do something. So it's like doing something on the transition. We also have follow, which is another element which enables to tracking values. So you can actually say, okay, I want to follow the item moving because at some point I want to do something. Let's say when it's in the middle of the UI, or let's say when it's at 75% of its original position. So it might be useful in some cases, like when you rotate and you want to do a nice effect and the scaling has to be a bit tweaked so it actually looks fine on the phone. Then you use a follow animation to enable tracking value and say at some point, okay, I need to do my trick. So I have a small demo of how you can do states. Up. Here. So I got a small example. So we got a rectangle on the top, right? Which is white, which is the background. We also have another rectangle, which is actually the button, red. And I have a text, which is remove. As you can see here, the opacity is 0, which means that when you first show the application, then we won't see the text, right? Then we got an image, right, which is called trash icon, and which load trash.png, and this one has an opacity of 1, right? So we're gonna see it on the first show. So and here I put two to do. So if I run the small example here, this is what we see, right? White rectangle, red rectangle, and then the button. The trash can image, right? So, so let's say now what I want to do is when I click on the trash can, but the trash can image, I make the text appear, right? Like the remove text. Like a bit of some phones where you have an icon and then when you click there is the button showing, right? Remove, we'll say, I think it's the iPhone. So it's easy in QML. So on my button rectangle here, on the same object, right? Like if you see the curly brace is actually closed for this item. So here I can declare state. So since it might be several states, it's actually an array. So you create an array like this. And then you say, okay, state 1, we'll call it, it will have a name, and we'll call it show text. Like this. And also what I forgot to say is by default, there is an implicit default state, which is empty string. So by default, the default state is empty string. So when I I don't need to declare two states, the initial one and the show text. You can do it, it works as well. Here. And then I do a property action, or property change, sorry. So you can see there is a completion. I would say on this state, when I enter on that state, one property will change. So here, and I said the target of the property. So in our case, it will be the remove text, right? It's the ID. And I say remove text. And then I said oops. Property change target, and then name, and then opacity, and then it's the value, I think. Well, so a bit of demo effect stays. Oh. Up. Up. Yeah, so I get X. So, sorry. Up, and then I said I want the opacity to be instead of being 0, I want it to be 1, right? And I also want to hide the icon of the trash can, so I do property changes name. So in that case, it will be the trash icon, trash icon, and then I will say opacity 0, right? So when I enter in the show text, the icon will disappear and the text will appear. That's what it means.